Okay, now we have a fair understanding of what scenarios we are going to build. So we need to get more clarity on how do we define these features and scenarios. So there are few slides that I have got from a useful resource online, and I guess this resource is this. I found it on SlideShare. So this resource is going to help us in making a better understanding of what we have talked about till now, so that we get more clarity on what RESTful means. So let's open it. So REST API typically uses HTTP methods, and here they are defining, like, we first need to identify the resources. Like in our project, the resource is a quiz, because a user can create multiple quizzes and then he can kind of list, replace, create, delete. So here they are giving an example that if we talk about collection URI, so in our case the collection URI will be localhost/quizzes. So localhost 3000. So this will be kind of a get command to list all the quizzes. So this is called a URI for the collection resource. Okay, if we do the get command, it should list all the collections members. So basically all the quizzes should be listed. If we call the put command, it should replace the collection with another collection. If we call the post command, so put is basically to update, post is to create a new entry. If we want to create a new quiz, then we make a post backend call to create a new quiz, and delete is to delete the entire collection. Now there is another endpoint that typically is used, that is in quizzes. If we have a quiz ID, we give that ID, let's say we have 450. So if this is one of my quiz, if I enter this URL, then it should show me that particular quiz number. So this is called element URI. So here we are going in resources, we are going to particular item 17, and the last URI that I was saying, it can be a simple number or it can be any resource name like this. So here when we do get, it should give that member of the collection. If we call put, it should update the same member. Post is typically not used, because if we have to create a new quiz, we'll be doing the post call on the collection URI rather than the element URI. Now delete is mainly to delete the member of the collection. So these are RESTful APIs, and this is the way we are going to define them in our feature and scenarios. Next, it has given some examples what is the good way to define the APIs. So here it is defining that, it is saying this is request will be get, and this will be going to be, this is an example URI, and response is going to be, there is a status code. Previously we talked about HTTP response codes. So there are few codes that we are going to use. So 200 stands for success. So if we make a get call and it was successful, so first we get a response code of 200, and then we get the response payload. So this is the data that comes back in the form of JSON. In our example also, this is how our APIs will behave once they are up and running. Another example, if we take a look at, this is post. So when we are saying post, here this will not have an ID. So we are giving title, author, ISBN, available quantity of a book, and status will be 200 from post, because this is a success, and the post is going to return us the ID. So this is the ID of newly created book that has been added using the post call. Third example is if request is delete, so we are going to delete this book. So simply the response will come back and it will say 200, that's okay. If we try to get an unauthorized URL, then it will return us a code of 401, which is unauthorized access. And there is one more that most of the people are aware of, which is 404, the resource not found. So if we try to get an item, like here we are doing delete, but if this was a get call and this ID, after deletion of this ID, if we try to get it, then that will say 404, that item is no more there in the database. Then put is to update any existing item. So if we are doing put and we are giving some wrong data values which are not there in the database, which are not defined as per the schema of the database, if we try to do that, then server will return us 500, which is internal server error. So this is the level of granularity and clarity with which we should be defining our feature file, and then we should be able to test it thoroughly. Now another question that comes is, if we are developing RESTful APIs, why should we test it? Because anyways, when we develop the UI will be tested thoroughly, and the data on the UI will tell us if there is something wrong, some mistake is happening. But we may be wrong there. There are a few reasons for thoroughly testing RESTful APIs. First is, if it is used by external application, then this is your UI. So your UI may use the RESTful API in a proper manner. But if third-party UI is there, and let's say they are trying to access, they are trying to update the invalid IDs in the backend data, so there should be some validation in the backend which says this is a wrong way you are using it. Because our UI we can control, we can use the best practices and guidelines, but when we make an API, these are supposed to be consumed by a lot of external vendors, third-party vendors also. Now, as your system layer can help find isolate problems. Now if RESTful has some problem in the backend, and if we have automated unit tests there, so problem will be detected then and there that backend has a problem rather than the front end. And later on it will also help us evaluate the security level testing performance, like how much we are able to scale through REST APIs, what is the robustness of our APIs, and how the functionality of that is working. So these problems of these areas, if we do at API level, then they will be more quick and simple. So this is the statement here. Maybe more simple to test or automate than GUI tests. Because in GUI, in the front end, we have to write tests which understand the UI elements and then they perform the UI actions. And ultimately we are using this behavior driven development. So first requirement there is PO, which is product owner. In Scrum or in agile developments, PO stands for product owner. So product owner or QA writes the scenarios, because they come together and they write these scenarios. Then developer writes unit test or integration test, so developer automates that, and once these tests are automated, then developer goes and writes the tests until the test passes. So developer keeps on making changes, because requirements he cannot change once they have been agreed upon with product owner and QA. So developer has to automate the tests in such a way that these tests are validating what is written in the feature file of Visual Studio. Well, so that sets the context, and now we can go ahead and define our first scenario here. So we say, given I make a get call, so we can make get bigger, get call to slash, we can say quizzes. Given I make the get call, ideally it should be and I am authorized, but right now we did not talk about authentication and authorization, so we can simply get rid of the and step here. Given I make a get call to quizzes, when this should be defined, this is I make a get call is an action. Given I make a get call to quizzes, given I have the base URI, so if I know the URI of site and I make a get call to quizzes after appending to the URI, then okay, one more thing, given there are few quizzes already added to DB, when I make a get call to slash quizzes, then I should get all the quizzes back, and status code for API should be 200. So this becomes our complete scenario. So this is list all the quizzes created by me. So right now I'll remove created by me as well, because there is no user account, so we can't really go there. List all quizzes, list empty list of quizzes. So we say, given there are no quizzes added to the DB, when I make get call to quizzes, I should get empty JSON array back, and status code for the response should be 200. So two simple scenarios we have declared and defined here. Now next what we need to do is, like, ideally this file will grow on bigger, which we will do eventually, but right now we'll see one full cycle of what we do after we have defined the scenarios. So once these scenarios have been defined, we go to the references section and we add a nugget package here. So we will search for SPECFLOW, and we'll go ahead and we need this SPECFLOW and SPECFLOW X unit. So if we install SPECFLOW X unit directly, we don't even need to install the SPECFLOW only SPECFLOW, because this has a dependency on SPECFLOW. So ideally we need two things, we need SPECFLOW and SPECFLOW X unit, but we see that SPECFLOW X unit, if we are installing, it is bringing in all the dependencies it has. So it's better to go with the root, and then everything will follow along. Well, so this will do the installation. So this is kind of adding the reference to SPECFLOW libraries in our project, and once they are added, so SPECFLOW detected changes, we say yes, fair. So now we have the desired dependencies added here. So let's say yes, yes, okay. So once these things are installed, next step is we convert our scenario to dummy code. So we right click here, and this time we say generate step definitions comes, and we hit that, and we say all the steps that we have added here, just go and generate the code for that, and we'll accept the default. So now what happened is our scenario is backed by the code here, which we can write to automate our scenario. So each of the statement that we had written there, it has a corresponding functions in the C# code. Right now this pending means if we call it, it will throw an exception saying you have not implemented it. So this way of calling is like all these functions are unimplemented as of now. But in nutshell, what we can say is we have our scenario defined, and we have the automated test cases. Though these test cases are not yet implemented, they are not doing anything, but still we have reached to a place where automated test suite is created. And how do we run this test suite today is, if we do build solution, then we will notice in left side test explorer, all our tests, which are kind of two scenarios here, they will start listing up here, and we have reached a stage where we can run our automated test cases. So once the build has succeeded, we'll wait for these tests to appear here. Okay, they are not yet in. So let's give it one more try, and let me check the references for X unit. And so X unit reference is not here, that's why these texts are not appearing. So we'll have to add X unit once again. So we say manage nugget packages, and here we search for X unit, and the moment we install that, okay, this and Visual Studio Runners, both of them we will need. So we install Visual Studio Runners, and we install, okay, X unit is there, only the Visual Studio Runner was not there. Yeah, that is something that we need in order to have the Visual Studio integration of our tests. So now if we go and build the solution, we'll see two of our tests will start appearing here. Yes, they have come now, and once these tests have come over here, we can run our tests, though they will fail for now, but that's fine, we'll give it a try. We can say run all, and when we say run all, it will search for our test cases, which are kind of written in terms of scenario, and here it will show the status of that, green or red. So now it is discovering the test started and finished. If we go here, click, and we see, so this says test pending, one or more step definitions are not implemented yet. So going forward, what we will have to do is we'll have to do the implementation of these steps, and that is when we will we'll first automate these test cases by filling in these functions, and then we will be writing the code for our scenarios, and then we will be integrating our code and test together and see that all our scenarios are passing. Well, so we have set the stage, we have set the ground, and in upcoming session we'll add all the scenarios that we are developing. Then we'll go and develop the web application where we were writing our code, which is the mean quiz application, and from there our engineering efforts will pick on. So thanks for watching. We'll meet again in the next video.